What's up, YouTube? What's up, YouTube? It's your boy back with another one. People, in today's video, we are going to talk about a very touchy subject, the one about brutality against people. And you might not agree with me on this topic. I know a lot of people are going to come for me in the comments, but I can guarantee you, when we talk about brutality, you might not see the real picture behind the picture. Let me know what you think about this topic in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. You know we family, right? Phew, man. People, I know when we talk about oppression and we talk about brutality, we will always think about the bad old days when colonization was a thing. And for sure, it was bad, really bad, very bad. Can't dispute that, right? Okay. Now, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this topic, right? So let's compare. Was colonization so bad that Africans left their countries in droves? Let's be honest. Name me one country where colonization was so bad, that the majority of the black people, or like millions of black people, left because of colonization. Name me one country on the continent, that on the African continent, where that happened. I don't think you can name one. I don't think so. Now, why is that? Let's talk about let's talk about let's talk about Zimbabwe, right? Let's talk about the DRC, Congo. Let's talk about Mozambique. Let's talk about Nigeria. You know, these are like the three, four. Let's South Africa include. Okay, let's put South Africa in there as well. So these are like the four major countries where we could talk about absolute brutality, right? Now listen to this. During colonization, white people, white governments, let's say white governments, let's be specific, right? White governments and white and colonization sympathizers treated people of color very badly, right? But, but, they treated them badly to a point, right? Treated them so badly to a point that it was still bearable to live within the borders of the countries, of these four countries, right? And to be fair and to be honest, I think the governments could have done much worse if they really wanted to, but chose not to, you know, for fear of international retribution, right? For fear of that. Whereas, let's just, I'm just give an example. In the case of Israel, they just don't care because they get the backing from the world's biggest superpowers and the world's whatever. So they go absolute full throttle in whatever they want to do, and they still not succeeding. Okay, but I digress. So we keep it back in Africa. So we go to South Africa. Apartheid was bad. We all know that, and they were brutal. I mean, the horrific crimes that were committed during apartheid are unimaginable. It's stuff that you don't want to even wish upon your worst enemy, like people that were killed and stuff like that, right? Which is a horrendous, horrific thing to happen to anybody, right? The stuff that went on during apartheid, even colonization in Mozambique, colonization in Zimbabwe, and where else? The things that happened in Congo, right, with King Leopold. The funny thing is, even though there was brutality, right, on such a massive scale, right, it didn't drive the people out. The people chose to stay and fight because they could see some way, somehow, that they had a chance. They had a fighting chance if they stayed. And the regime was brutal, but it wasn't It wasn't to the extent that sadly our own people inflict on us. Now, if we go and we look into Zimbabwe's case, that's even worse to describe. The white people treated the black people like absolute dirt, you know, denying them certain things and stuff, you know, going creating wars and blowing up people and killing innocent people. And still the people stayed in Zimbabwe. They fought. They got independence. Same like South Africa, they stayed and they fought. They got independence. Same like Mozambique. They were treated badly by the Portuguese. They stayed and they fought. They got independence. Then these people come into power. Your own people come into power. Oh my goodness. Now they also treat you worse, much worse than how the colonizers treated you. Now, the amount of Mozambicans leaving Mozambique for a better future after independence. The number of Zimbabweans leaving Zimbabwe in search of a better life after independence, post colonization. Do you know how these governments crack down on their own people? Do you know how brutal these regimes are to their own people? I mean, there's two ways you could do this. One, you could physically beat up, kill, maim your own people, right? Beat them up into submission, right? Two, you could starve them into submission to a point where like they become immobilized, like they can't even really move or anything like that. I mean, look in the case of Nigeria, for example, right? The British colonized Nigeria. I think at that time during colonization, I don't think Nigerians like were moving abroad in great numbers as they are like post colonization, because the British still had, a good economy running, I think, you know, and things got worse after colonization happened. Post colonization, independence came, everyone celebrates. But then came the crash of the economies throughout Africa. As it's just like wherever the British left, the people that took over just didn't know, just not to say didn't know, still don't know how to manage and run economies. They don't know how to run countries. They don't even know how to run companies because they haven't started businesses from the ground up. They do shareholding. They are shareholders in companies. That's how they become billionaires. So my thing is this, right? Why would we vote our own people into power? And yet these people are the very people who brutalize us, who take us for worse than nothing. I mean, it's one thing for you to leave your country based on the brutality inflicted on you by another race. But then it's quite another thing for you to leave your country because of barbarism and brutality being inflicted on you by your own people. This just doesn't make sense. I mean, the same Mozambicans, the same Zimbabweans that stayed and fought for independence and then got the independence, then turned on their own people, are now worse than the colonizers. It got to a point now where even these people are now asking and begging for the colonizers to come back. Then you ask yourself this question: who is worse? Or who was worse? The colonizers or your own people? Now, there's a saying that says a black man's enemy or a black man's worst enemy is another black man. And this rings true. This rings true. People, we can deny it all we want. Black people, when I say black, I'm talking about black people and colored people for context. Because you know, I've never seen unity in these communities at all. Never. Dude, there's rare cases where unity actually comes up. You know what I mean? There can be crime happening there. No, no, no. Communities won't come together to stamp out crime. We know who's doing it, but we won't stamp it out. The governments come at us. Guess what? We won't stand up. No, we won't. We won't die. We don't want to die for our countries. No, 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 we don't. We want other people to come and help us fight for our wars, to fight our problems. And yet the people of South Africa, for example, yeah, people supported South Africa from a distance. It's not like the other countries came in helped by fighting and sending troops into South Africa. No, they didn't. Those troops, South Africans were so emboldened, they were so brazen as to go and attack the other countries. You understand what I'm saying? I don't remember if any other country sent soldiers into South Africa. I don't ever think so. South Africans, South Africans are so brazen that they even killed Samora Machel, the president of Mozambique. I mean, how do you like that? They even went into Angola. That's how brazen and emboldened these people were. They were even attacking in Zimbabwe. That's how brazen and emboldened these people were. But none of those countries that experienced this, none of them thought of coming together as a unit and attacking South Africa to help the black and colored South Africans to gain independence. No, they didn't. But of course, they held them there with camps. I mean, they supported with camps. Yeah, you can come and create bases in our countries. And that was a great help, to be honest. It was a great help. But it would have been even better if they could have come together as independent countries with an air force, with the tanks, and invaded South Africa and fought on the battlefield with the South Africans. That's what I'm trying to say. So today the ANC is treating the black people like dirt, like next to nothing, right? The ruling government, let's just not say the ANC. Let's say the ruling elite in South Africa now, right? Let's say the ruling elite, because now it's the government of national unity. So now it's all just like mixed masala, right? People, we have a government that has now turned on us, right? The very people we voted into power are the very people now who are crashing the economy, stealing billions, taking food out of the mouths of starving families. We have people now that are basically ignoring the plight of the people. I can understand, let's say during apartheid, that there was no flushing toilets because the apartheid regime, they just ignored the black people. You tell me 20, 30 years into apartheid, and there are still places that still do not have running water, no tarred roads, no flushing toilets, no basic amenities. How? How? I mean, if you're going to criticize the apartheid government for not providing services back during the apartheid days, what would you now say to the current government who's keeping that same status quo? Now, my thing is this. We need to give credit where credit is due, and we need to criticize where critique is due, right? So, I'll ask you a question. Think of all the, not the abandoned, think of all the neglected areas that the apartheid regime neglected, right? And then let's look at them in 2023, 2024, right? 2023, 2024. Other than soup kitchens, other than food parcels, what major infrastructure development has gone into those neglected areas? People, a place like Hammanskraal, for example, Hammanskraal, it's not exactly a rural area. It's not exactly like far up behind mountains and no, it's not. But there are people there that had no running water for over 20 years. We have people that don't even have homes. People, you are on the waiting list for a house for since the 70s. It's now 2024. Let's just say 2023 to be frank, to 2020. No, let's say 2020, in 2025. So let's just say 2024 because it's just like a month into 2025. Okay. So it's 2024 now, right? A full year, 24 has gone, and you still don't have a house. Now, I'm not saying that the government needs to build each family a house. All I'm simply saying is if the apartheid government could build so many, so many houses during apartheid and relocate all the colors and the blacks into Kailicha and all those houses were built during apartheid, right? Right? All I'm simply saying is this modern day government doesn't have the budget to do that. I totally understand because they stole the money. They stole the money. Stole it. They just stole the money. Took it. Hey, they just stole the money. The least they can do is build blocks upon blocks upon blocks upon blocks of flats. They can build rows upon rows upon rows upon rows of flats. That's all they need to do. That's all they need to do. But guess what? Even that is too much. That is too much. When your own people start to oppress you, then you begin to realize that the old enemy was not that bad. Really not that bad. I mean, just the neglect of Johannesburg. Just Johannesburg looks like a. Oh, guys, if you looked at the way. By the way, I wasn't there, but yeah. If you looked at the way they, according to pictures, right? If you looked at the way Hillbrow, your Bear Park, Yeovil, and Berea look like. This is like Johannesburg, right? This is like the capital of South Africa, right? The financial capital, but everyone knows Johannesburg. People, if you saw what Hillbrow looked like back in the 70s, compare it now, you would think that they would have taken that city, the part of that city, and enhanced it and improved on it and kept it in the state that it was the whole time. But no, it they neglected it. It's now become a degenerate place. It's people. That is a sign of your own people turning on you. So when you live in an area that's being neglected by your own people, ask yourself, even service delivery, price hikes, all these things that people never worried about during the 70s and during colonialism, finally all these things are being put on you. Neglect, service delivery is becoming an issue, skyrocketing prices. Does this show that your government really cares about you? I mean, if our own people are stealing money that's meant for us, dude, I'm not saying that the colonial governments didn't steal money. I'm not saying that. But at least they have a lot to show for it. They used to steal money, but they also had a functioning economy that ran smoothly. We are stealing money, but our economies are falling apart. Guys, we have our own presidents on the continent who can't even go to their own hospitals because they don't even have the facilities, they don't even have the equipment. They have to go out of the country to get treatment. What does that say about the leaders that we have? So I don't know if this makes sense that sometimes you look and then you ask yourself this question. Were the colonialists, the imperialists, were they really that bad after all? I mean, if anyone ever speaks about the heydays were never in the modern era. If it was in the modern era, it was just shortly after independence. If you really talk about, let's say 10, 20, 15, 20 years after independence, dude, I mean, if the colonialists ran a country for, let's just say, what, 50 years, And of those 50 years, it was just bliss. I mean, minus the brutality, the what, but I'm just talking about just the functioning of the economy. Everything was, prices were low, things were nice. Guys, clean country, everything functioned, service delivery and everything. For 50 years, if they could do it for 50 years, and our people are failing to do it just 10 years into independence, and then you're going to say, those are our people? Those are people that care for us? Like, really? Then I don't know what type of conversation we need to be having. Like, really, I don't understand. Man. Just doesn't make sense, man. Next, we get into the positives, man. You know how it goes, man. Peace. People. Let's talk about the positives of our people, right? Number one, they represent us on the global stage. But when we say they represent us on the global stage, is it in a positive light? Is it in a progressive light? Is it in a dominant light? I mean, excuse me. For me, I don't care that the president goes to Davos, the G20 meetings. I don't care that the president gets to the UN. I don't care that the president goes and he gets to show that Africa's present. If you are representing us with a begging bowl, if you're going to represent us like some weak country that's just there looking for aid, then don't represent us. Just don't. Stay away from those things. I mean, America threatens Africa that if they don't come to these America Africa summits, to these G20 meetings, to these whatever, there will be consequences. Consequences. As an African leader, if you feel like you have pride and you have dignity, you as an African leader will say, bring it on. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, they won't bring aid to the country anymore. Stuff your aid. Keep your aid. Because every time you get there, you treat us like school kids. I mean, these are grown people. These African leaders are grown people. So my thing is this: you can oppress your people back home by beating them up, like starving them, stealing their monies, not giving them salaries on time, breaking the economies. You're man enough to do that in your own country. But yet when you go overseas, you are treated like nothing. So, but in your own country, you are the man. Don't be a man in your country only. Be a man across the globe, like Vladimir Putin, like the Chinese president, like you see Ibrahim Traore. He turned down an invitation by Trump for the inauguration. He took on the French president and told him, leave or face the wrath of our people. That's the type of leaders you need. Don't just be a leader, strong leader, when it comes to terrorizing your own people. Now you're going to show that you are the man. You can starve your nation. You can beat up your nation. I mean, when your people are leaving your country in droves, then there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your style. There's something wrong with your policies. There's just something wrong with you mentally. I mean, it is wrong. I've never seen a colonized country when Britain was ruling the most parts of Africa. There was not so much migration happening. I don't I can't remember a time where there was mass migration across the continent all because the British were ruling. I'm not saying the British were angels. I'm simply saying that there was not so much mass migration from country to country like what's happening now that the British are gone. Guys, these African leaders are not here for us. They're here for themselves. That's why I keep saying a black man's biggest, worst enemy is not the white man. It's another black man. Trust me when I tell you that. And when I say black, I'm not just meaning black African people. I'm including colored people in this. Guys, we need to do better as a nation. We need to see who the real enemies are. Yes, people are afraid that, oh, if white people take over, there's going to be apartheid. And yes, the DA is doing this, A, B, C, D. Guys, the DA has its own faults. The DA is not a perfect party. The DA is not an angelic party at all. In fact, the DA is a bunch of Zionists. You know what I mean? and they're proud to be Zionists as well. It's proud to be that. Dude, they have the discriminatory policies against the colored people. We see it, we feel it, we know it because we live here in the Western Cape. You know what I mean? There's no doubt about that. At least you know what I'm saying. And that's to be honest, and that's to be fair. I mean, it's public knowledge. The NCC, they actually point out all the things that the DA are doing that are not fair to the colored people, right? But if I have to compare now, like we always go back, if I have to compare now what the DA is doing compared to what the ANC is doing in Johannesburg, just the guys, Johannesburg is there's no drought in Joburg, but Joburg they suffer with water, just basic water. I don't know if the taps are not. I don't know if the water from Lesotho is not flowing down fast enough. I don't know if the people are consuming too much. But ANC ruled places are just like I know Donald Trump said Africa is a bunch of shithole countries, right? But within South Africa, all the ANC ruled places are just a bunch of shithole provinces. That's just the way I see it. So we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. So if I have to choose, I have to choose. Dude, seeing the way black people rule countries up in guys, as South Africans, we don't even see South Africa as in Africa. Just because of the way the black people are ruling those countries up there, running them into the ground. Just like the way the ANC is ruling their provinces and running them into the ground. I mean, come on. At this point now, South Africans can't say, oh, South Africa is not in Africa anymore because we are surely, well, besides the Western Cape, every other province is sliding down that road. It's beginning to look like Africa now. It's beginning to look like Africa now, potholes and all that. Like I say to you, the biggest enemy is another black man. They can see potholes happening, they're not going to fix them. They'll leave the potholes just growing bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm not saying there's no potholes in Cape Town or Western Cape. I'm not saying that. But compared to the number of potholes that are happening in the ANC heat area, ruled areas, man, come on. The neglect is just way beyond too much. I mean, at least here in Cape Town, we still get service delivery. I mean, you don't really see service delivery protests in Cape Town. You don't really see that. You see neglect of other things. Yeah, like when there's flooding, then they want houses and they need this and that, like new things for houses and stuff. But they always get told, people do not build shacks on these water land, but there's no land. So people want to build houses on build shacks near to their workplaces. And most of those lands are inhabitable because they are like the watershed places or something like that, right? Most because like in inlands when it rains, it floods in those places. But people don't have a choice. They need jobs and be close to the jobs, so they build anywhere close to the jobs. But it stated there that those lands are not for building for housing purposes. That is why it floods, right? But if you're desperate, you don't have a choice. You do what you gotta do, right? That's it. So I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just rambling on, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You let me know what you think in the comment section below. People, the negatives, the cons. One, I don't know if our people will ever be our best friends. I don't know if our people will ever have our interests. I don't know if our people will ever want to see us prosper. I don't know if our people get some sort of joy watching us suffer. I don't know if our own people have this undying love for atrocious I don't know what word to use because it's one thing to get oppressed by another race group, right? It irks you differently than when you're getting oppressed by your own kind. Because it's shock, it's disbelief, it's man. Did you see how Robert Mugabe was treating the Zimbabweans? Do you see how many Zimbabweans have left Zimbabwe just because of the brutality? I'm just talking about the brutality alone, let alone the high prices, the starvation, the people. You cannot even fathom that at one point that country was the bread basket. Bread basket. But some idiots decided that they're going to take the bread out of that basket and throw the basket away. Now there's no bread and no basket. Now you tell me, are the colonizers still the enemy? Were the colonizers that bad? Because I'm saying, if the colonizers were that bad, trust me, the majority of the country would have left. But guess what? They didn't, because there was still something to hold on to, even though there was all that brutality going on. After independence, those African countries, there's nothing to hold on to. The brutality is going on. They have no choice. Then they leave. People, listen to me carefully. As African people, we are not designed to lead nations. We are not designed to build companies. We are not designed to do certain big things. Those things we leave to other races who know how to handle those things. What we are good at doing is managing things. What we are good at doing is following other people. That is why Africa doesn't have its own apps, its own YouTube, its own TikTok, its own. We do not know how to build from the ground up, let alone manage. I mean, most countries were left in good shape, to be honest, by the colonizers, right? Most countries were left, the colonies were left in good shape. They had good infrastructure. Even that we couldn't do. That we couldn't even handle just managing the infrastructure, managing the economy. Even that our people can't even do. So now you tell me, who are the real enemies? Who? You tell me. Let me know what you think about this topic in the comment section below. Was I on the money or did I totally miss it with this one? Because your input helps the channel grow and your input also helps me shape the way I present and the way I talk and the way I see things, because I try to see things from a mutual point of view. I try to see both sides because I don't want to be one-sided. So I just try to see things, bringing up the pros and the cons, and I try to see, weigh both sides from all angles. That's the whole point of the channel. You know what I mean? So let me know what you guys think about this topic in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. We family, right? Holla.